So at WrestleMania 25, obviously Undertaker and Shawn had an amazing WrestleMania match. I do want to bring up the star rating with you about it because I know people always get on you about this. So that match from you got 4.75 stars, right? So just to
Yes.
set the record straight, you've always said that's a great match, right? So it's not that you're
4.75, many years is match of the year. And that match actually won match of the year. Um,
so my question
so
to you, my question to you about that is what
I was so close. I was so close on five. And as far as, I mean,
what
it
made it
was,
not get five, do you think? Like what was the one
I
you
mean,
think?
to me, five was a standard that, it's not, it's never about what didn't. It was just like when it was over, it's like, when it's over, it's like, man, this is like 4 3/4 or five. And I go, well, if I say it's 4 3/4 or five, and I've done this for many matches, that means 4 3/4. Five means, I mean, for me to go five means I have to go in there and go like, like this is whatever. And like, look, if you said five, I mean, I was pretty damn close on five. There's not really a reason like people go, oh, it's because of this thing that happened in the match. And it's like, nah, it was just, you got to remember, I've seen all those Japanese matches and they're better, much better. And, this was a hell of a match though, but it was just, I mean, there's not really again, 4 3/4 is a great, great rating. I mean, people now, it's like, how do you give that thing 4 3/4? Like some whatever. And it's just like, you know, um, it's still, like anything over four is a great rating. So I thought, yeah, I mean, I thought it was, I don't know, one of the best WWE matches I'd seen. I did not think it was as good as Brett and Austin, if you're going to go with that comparison. Um, I mean, in moves wise, you could argue it, but I don't think motion story, it was as good. I could talk about, but I'd already made my decision, talking with two of the greatest wrestlers of all time that night after that match, discussing that match. And neither of them thought it was as good as I did. And, they're probably like, if you think of two great friends of mine that were two of the greatest wrestlers of all time, you might even figure out who they were. But one of them basically said that any one of us could have done this match, but we never would because we were, basically doing everyone's finish. That's all we did. And the other one was just like, what was the deal? My turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, which was actually maybe one of my thoughts too, was that um, it didn't have the unpredictability to me because I just saw everything coming when it was coming, which is maybe my fault, as far as because I like something that like for me, like the ultimate super match is not I can predict everything. It's like I am stunned. These guys are taking my level of watching a match and twisted it, but made it successful. Like they've done things I wouldn't think of, but it works. To me, that's where you get like a super match. This one was, yeah, I saw everything coming and it was great. And I gave it 4 3/4 and I could have given it five. I mean, it's like, it's not a negative. I still think it's one of the best matches in WrestleMania history.
WrestleMania 30, the end of the streak and the Daniel Bryan, will he, won't he situation. With the streak ending and Brock winning it, did you see that coming and what was your reaction when it happened?
I did not see the streak ending. I don't know if anyone did, but if you're asking me, I was freaking stunned. But when he hit that last F5 before the three count, I did go, oh my God. Because I just thought he'd hit so many F5s. Wasn't it the third one, right? Yeah. I mean, like when you hit the first one, it's like, it's not the finish for sure. Hit the second one, it's kind of like, man, but it's not the finish because he ain't losing. When he hit the third one, and they're that deep into the match, it was kind of like, oh my God, he's beating him. And he did. So I would say I figured it out like the second it happened. But until then, there was like 0% chance in my mind that Brock Lesnar was winning that match. And um, and I know, Boyd, I know if you remember afterwards, so many people in wrestling were furious at that, going like, he should never have lost. He should never have lost. And I don't know. I mean, I asked, I never talked to Vince about it, but I did talk to people very close to Vince and I go like, what was the deal? And it was, that might have been Undertaker's last match. Obviously, it didn't end up being that, but we were afraid this is his last match, and we wanted somebody to beat him, because what's the point of the streak unless somebody wins beats the streak? And Brock was the right guy. Somebody else would have self-destructed under it. It would have been, Brock was the guy. And so that was the deal that year. And Brock, I know Brock pushed pretty hard for it too.
Just a couple of last questions. So obviously when COVID hit right before WrestleMania 36, they had to do the show in the empty Performance Center. But Bray Wyatt and John Cena did that Firefly Funhouse match, which is kind of insane that they put that together in like a week when that world had shut down. What did you think of that, and what was kind of the reaction from people you were speaking to about that match?
The Firefly Funhouse?
Yeah.
It's very divisive. Some people loved it and some people absolutely hated it. I wasn't a fan of it. I know it was creative as hell. It just wasn't my cup of tea. But yeah. It's one of those things where now the Undertaker match, with the cinematic match, I love that. I thought that was fantastic.
Do you think? This is just a hypothetical question, but do you think if COVID hadn't happened and Undertaker and AJ Styles had a match in a stadium, do you think Undertaker still had it at that point to have a memorable match, or do you think in some ways the cinematic match was?
Well, I think the cinematic match certainly was much better. Could he have pulled it together for one match against a guy who wrestles at the level of AJ Styles? I think so. I don't think it would be as good as the one that they had, but I don't think it would have been a bad match. I think it would have been a very, very good match. AJ, that's AJ at the top of his game, and AJ's a super, super talent. And Undertaker, for one match a year, the guys, I think he would have been fine. Granted, some of his matches late in his career were not the greatest, but AJ was at the level where I think it would have been, whatever it was, but what they did and what it ended up being was, I think, much better than it would have been as a regular match, and much more memorable and much more fitting, farewell too.
Was there ever any conversations you remember about ideas that Streak was going to end before Brock? Was there ever any kind of people who it was close that they were maybe going to have somebody break it?
Well, at the beginning, it wasn't even a big deal. It took on a life of its own after a while. I'd heard rumblings that, but not when it was happening. But I had heard rumblings afterwards that they had considered Randy Orton, but the streak wasn't as big a deal then at the time. But and it's probably for the best that they didn't do it, because the streak, as years went on, the streak became the biggest thing at WrestleMania. Some years when they didn't have as strong, matches, the streak was big enough to carry the whole show. So I think it was fortunate that they didn't make that decision for Randy Orton. But after, in the later years, like when it was Edge and Ric Flair and some of these people, Ric Flair was earlier, but in some of the later years, I don't think it was even considered. And, by the time, we got to Lesnar, I didn't even consider it as a possibility, it was Shawn, and I never thought nobody ever thought Shawn was going to win. I didn't think, or Triple H, even though with Triple H, there was a slight thing because of the idea that this could be Undertaker's last match. And if it was, then Triple H should win. But, it was, once that thing really got established, it was more of, I don't think that, I didn't think, and I don't think anyone really thought that any of these guys were beating them.